Hello, friends. Wanted to share a couple thoughts on the next section of the Gospel of Mark. I've been thinking it over and trying to really grasp at the heart of what's going on, and I'm just going to share a few thoughts. It's Mark chapter 2, verses 18 through 22. And it says, "Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, and people came and said to him, 'Why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?' And Jesus said to them, 'Can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins.'" The event that prompts this teaching, if you will, from Jesus about the bridegroom, about these two examples, is John's disciples and the Pharisees fasting, and this question, it just says people came and said to him, "Why do they fast, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus essentially says that the bridegroom's here, or uses an example of the wedding guests don't fast while the bridegroom is with them. Essentially, this is a time of joy. Just like the guests at a wedding don't fast, even though, as I've heard somebody say one time, that would certainly make the reception a whole lot cheaper. Just ask the guests to fast instead of having a reception where you have to provide food and drink. But no, nobody fasts at a wedding reception. This is a time of joy. It's a time of enjoyment. And he's essentially saying that he is the bridegroom. And this is a time of joy while his disciples enjoy his presence. But there's a time coming when he's not going to be there. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "And when you fast," there's a time for fasting. We know that the early church fasted. That's Acts 13. When they were fasting, the Holy Spirit called Saul and Barnabas, or Paul and Barnabas, to missions. Called the church to send them out and do missions. So it's not that there's not a time for fasting, but Jesus says that this is a time of joy, not a time of fasting. And he then gives these two examples of things that don't go together. I don't think it's so much a new versus old, even though there is a new versus old, but I've thought about this, and it's not like there's not going to be a place for fasting in the new covenant. But there's things that don't go together, like a piece of new cloth being used to try and patch an old cloth, because when you wash it, the new cloth's going to shrink and it's going to actually tear worse. Or putting new wine into old wineskins. The wine is going to, when it ferments, it's going to expand and it's going to burst the wineskins. So you have something that's new and something that's old, but I think the main point is that these two things don't go together. But also, Jesus is bringing in something new. He's bringing in a new covenant, as we're going to see later at the Last Supper. Jesus is going to say, "This is the blood of the new covenant." But the main point, I believe, is that, and we ultimately, this is laid out beautifully in Psalm 16, and this is the desire that we have for our time with the Lord, that in him we have our greatest joy. That he is our joy, that with him is joy. Psalm 16, in his presence is fullness of joy. That being with him is enjoyment. Now, we do fast, or at least we should fast. That's something that I personally struggle with, but need to get better at. So you can pray for me as well as we can pray for each other on this, that we will grow in fasting, but also grow in joy in Jesus, that he has come to bring salvation. In his presence ultimately is fullness of joy. So may the Lord grant us a joy in him, greater than enjoyment and joy of anything else. Love you all. Take care.